Now, you have been actually loudly screaming from the rooftops, we cannot crush this economy like this. I understand publicly what we're all seeing. Everyone sees that. Privately, have you had anybody in our party or even Democrats tell you, hey, man, I agree, this is nuts?
Well, let me say two parties, right? The people that I talk to in the district I represent, they're definitely feeling it and telling me every single day that 53,000 employees and 2,300 restaurants that I represent, for example, getting absolutely hammered by virtue of being shut down. Because as you point out regularly, what do you think is going to happen when you shut down the greatest economy in the history of mankind? What do you think is going to happen when that freight train comes to a screeching halt? We're going to have widespread decimated lives, decimated businesses. And I get those calls all the time. In Washington, people are feeling it somewhat. I'll tell you, my colleagues in the House Freedom Caucus, they're pretty fired up about it. We literally just ended a phone call with the White House Legislative Affairs in which I expressed my strong discontent with what I was hearing out of Dr. Fauci yesterday, continuing this fear campaign that he's been on, which is stifling economic activity. We need to restore confidence in the American people to go back and recognize that half of the deaths are occurring in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, that the vast majority of people aged 0 to 65 could be right back in the saddle tomorrow, and we wouldn't have any significant impact, and we'd be able to have economic growth and jobs instead of 40 million people that we're almost having unemployed right now.
Now, you actually have a bill. Talk about it.
Well, one of the things that we passed in our congressional infinite wisdom a few months ago, and that $2 trillion and then a subsequent $500 billion, had something called the PPP in it. Now, that was the one provision that I thought actually had some merit, because I view this like a government taking. I view this like eminent domain. The governments are stepping in, state, local, and federal, prohibiting Americans from working. So, yeah, we owe them a few dollars to be able to try to get over the hump and get across the bridge to surviving. So we did that. But the problem is Congress messed it up like they always do. They now have they had an unemployment provision in the bill that pays people more to not work than to work. And as a result, they have restrictions on their ability to get the capital that we say they should go take in order to stay open. So my bill, the PPP Flexibility Act, it's a bipartisan bill. There's bipartisan agreement on this, believe it or not, to give greater flexibility to restaurants, small businesses, the hair salon owners, the live music venues, the hotel owners who are all getting hammered, and giving them flexibility so that they don't have the 75% requirement to maintain employment levels. They get longer than the 8 weeks to be able to get the loan to be effective. Look, if we're going to have federal dollars, that is borrow more money on the backs of our children and grandchildren. If we're going to do it, well, we damn well ought to make it work. So that's what this bill would do, and I'm delighted to see there's some movement in D.C. to do it.
Who puts all the garbage in these bills? I always try to get down to the bottom of this. I can never figure it out. Like, you and I will talk, and somebody will have put something horrible in these bills, something that makes you sick. Who's the actual person who puts this crap in the bills? Like that Kennedy Center funding. How did that get in there? A magical fairy didn't fly in and sprinkle it on the bill. A physical human being put it in. Who put it in?
Well, the short answer is, in our system of government, the House is run by majority. You have very few rights when you're a single member of the House. I'm 1/435th of 1/2 of 1/3 of this monstrosity. So Speaker Pelosi basically calls all the shots. And the only way to really combat that is by force from the White House and the Senate. In other words, you need Senate Leader McConnell and the White House to tell Pelosi to pound sand and be willing to mean it. And until they're willing to do that, they're going to, and as long as they continue to allow Steve Mnuchin to negotiate deals with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, you're going to end up with crap like that in the bills. And we're going to keep spending money we don't have. We're going to continue to waste it on programs that won't do anything to help the American people, and continue to pile up debt for our kids and grandkids rather than solving the problem. And you know, and I know, we need the economy open. So we should not give one single dollar to any of these state and local jurisdictions that are continuing to prohibit the economy from being open.
Chip, I'm scared to ask the question because I'm worried about the answer. But I see Nancy Pelosi bring up you brought up spending just now. I've been mortified. She brought up another $3 trillion bill. We saw Republicans come out and say, no, well, maybe no. Okay, we'll think about it. And I can just see this freight train coming of Republicans bending the knee once again and getting some watered down concessions and passing another massive spending bill. Please tell me it's not going to happen, Chip.
Well, again, the decision makers on that lie heavily in the White House and in the Senate to hold the line. So if you're listening out there, make sure your senators, whether it's in Texas or anywhere else, make sure they know that you don't want that to happen. Okay, so if you're a listener out there, make sure they know. And in the House, we'll fight it the best we can to highlight what's in it. But here's the normal course of action in Washington. Republicans don't actually fight. What they do is they find some shiny object that they're going to focus on a lot, and then they're going to try to get that one thing and then use that as the excuse to pass $3 trillion of spending. So they'll get one little fix, and then they'll say, look at us, we did such a great job. Meanwhile, we're continuing to pay people more to not work than to work. We're continuing to spend money we don't have. We're continuing to throw money at the NEA or the Kennedy Center. We're continuing to give money to illegals, right? That's the way Washington works. It's what the American people are fed up about. And the president needs to remember this. He's been doing a good job challenging the swamp on so many levels. But this is the swampiest of swamp things. And the president needs to highlight it, end it. Get the government out of the way of the American people. Let us live free. Let us live the way our founders gave us and the way that our forefathers fought to prevent this kind of tyranny. They need to get out there and do it.
Hey, thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.